Isn't that incredible? It's exactly like the real thing. Wow, it's true. FBI is so corrupt, it is sick. The FBI is acting like a public relations firm for the Bidens, setting up the social media companies. And it worked, man. They did it. And the CIA did it from the other end, too. If we can hold till the morning, I think we should. So much churn right now, avoiding Nathan's hot dog from infesting everybody's Facebook feed. The FBI busted trying to rig the 2020 election. And they did that by colluding and pressuring the social media companies to do their bidding. We've got a new report. It's a monster one. You can see from the Judiciary Committee, it is over 600 pages, 641 to be exact, talking about election interference, how the FBI pre-bunked a true story about the Biden family corruption before the presidential election. So they spiked the story before it came, right? They were conditioning the social media companies to nuke it in case something came up. And so we got a full report that we'll go through, starting with the executive summary here. But I want to show you what Jim Jordan posted. He says the FBI knew the Hunter Biden laptop was real, and it worked for months to prime big tech to censor the story because they knew it was going to drop. And so now this is the second federal agency, at least, that has pretty clear evidence that they were rigging the prior election. The CIA is already unequivocally involved. We can say that because of the 51 ex-so-called CIA officials and the intelligence officers who signed it, remember there were 3, including Michael Morell, who are allegedly, he denies it, but the House Oversight Committee investigated and found alternatively that he was being paid as a contractor. They worked at CIA facilities and they had their little letter approved by the CIA Publishing Board. That's 3 for 3, man. That's a CIA op. Same thing's happening here. They were doing it back then. It's the CIA. It was the FBI. You've got Homeland Security investigations and other entities that were all stood up to stop this from happening. So Jim Jordan shared this. Here's just one text that we'll look into further, but it says, but when we get hauled up to the hill, says this unknown random person, hauled up to the hill, why? Are you doing anything wrong? Is there going to be a problem? To testify on why we influenced the 2020 elections, we can say we've been meeting for years with the US government to plan for it, because that's what they were doing. It was not a free and fair election in any sense of the phrase. Now, here is what the executive summary says from Congress. They write, but when we get hauled up to Capitol Hill, we can say we've been working on this for years. Now, this was an internal Facebook message during their meeting with the FBI and other agencies. Here's the story. At 5 a.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday, October 14th, 2020, almost 4 years to the week, less than 3 weeks before the 2020 election. We're just 1 week out now. So just envision this happening right now, or 2 weeks ago. New York Post published a potentially election-altering news story about a years-long influence peddling scheme carried out by the family of Joe Biden. The Post article detailed how Hunter Biden leveraged his family's famous last name for significant gain. The information was recovered from a hard drive that was attributed to Hunter Biden, and the article included pictures of a signed federal subpoena demonstrating the FBI had already seized it, and they knew it was real. Neither Hunter nor the Biden presidential campaign denied the allegations. Indeed, the Biden Department of Justice has since authenticated it as evidence in federal court against Hunter. Soon after the news post was published, however, something strange happened. We remember this. Almost immediately, major social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, the modern-day digital town Square, censored the true, factually true story about the Biden family's influence peddling. As a consequence, millions of Americans cast their presidential vote unaware of serious, credible allegations of misconduct levied against one of the 2 candidates, brought through the free speech that we're all entitled to in America that was then censored by the government, leveraging the social media companies. They say this censorship served to benefit one candidate over the other and wrongfully affected the outcome of the election. Today, these companies and their executives belatedly admit that their censorship was wrong, and they're referencing Mark Zuckerberg's letter where he said, yeah, we shouldn't have demoted the Hunter Biden story on Facebook. Yeah, little too late there. And remember, this is all too little too late from Zuck and these big tech bros, because he was blamed in 2016 for Trump's victory. They were very upset that Trump's ad guys were exploiting Facebook and getting a bunch of people excited about Trump, and then they cut all that off in 2020. They stood up the anti-Trump digital infrastructure, and then they executed it, and mea culpa, yeah, after the fact. Now, why were the social media companies so ready to censor a true story about Hunty that was in a prominent American newspaper called The Post that was actually true? That if you just looked at it, you saw it was true. It was clearly real. Because the FBI had primed them for it, that's why. For nearly a year, the FBI had been conditioning social media companies to expect a, quote, hack and leak operation from Russia involving Hunter Biden. And this is where it gets so insane. It's like the FBI and the CIA are framing foreign adversaries for for a true story so that we go to war with them? Now, in more than 30 messages across 8 months, the FBI led big tech to believe that the allegations in the Post story were Russian disinfo, even though the FBI had authenticated the laptop for nearly a year before that. Beginning in early 2020, the FBI embarked on a concerted campaign to preemptively debunk, or to quote, pre-bunk the allegations of Biden family influence peddling. Federal agencies repeatedly warned social media platforms about a pre-election Russian influence operation relating to Hunter Biden and Burisma. Isn't that incredible? It's exactly like the real thing. Wow, it's true. FBI is so corrupt, it is sick. In many of these meetings between federal agencies and big tech, the FBI raised the topic of, hey, just warning you, there might be potential hack and leak operation. Oh, really? About what? I don't know. Maybe just shooting from the hip here, Hunter Biden and meth and Burisma and $1 million a month. I don't know. Okay, that's a little specific. Say these tech bros. What? That's weird. Okay. And then it happens like, oh, there it is. Oh, in many of these operations, they were talking about election security and potential foreign influence operations. In response, some platforms even adopted new content moderation policies specifically designed to address these issues. Then, when the Post reported the peddling of Biden, and the morning of October 14th, big tech did exactly what the FBI primed them to do. They obediently treated the article as Russian and applied their moderation policies to censor it, hiding it from the American people. Now, of course, as was obvious then, and as everybody is widely acknowledged now, the laptop was real and its contents were authentic. You have to be a moron to think differently. Apparently, it's the FBI we're talking about. Now, it was not Russian disinformation, obviously. The FBI knew this too. It had been in possession of Hunter's laptop since late 2019. Indeed, in June, the Justice Department used content, of this year. The Justice Department, the same agency that covered up for Hunter and warned him that they were going to go execute a search warrant on his storage locker before they did, so his defense attorneys could clear it out. The same DOJ then used the evidence against Hunter when he started to throw a temper tantrum because he wasn't getting his way. And yet the FBI not only primed social media companies to distrust the allegations about Biden, it misled them about the authenticity about Hunter's laptop after the story broke as well. Now, the FBI's duplicity notwithstanding, Congress says, big tech companies bear the blame as well. And I agree, by the way. They don't just get this, well, the FBI was pushing on us. They were. Let's be clear. If you're a company and the FBI is breathing down your neck, that's totally inappropriate. Doesn't matter how big you are. It's the federal government. It's the US government. But big tech companies here, I think they used it as a fake because they all wanted to do this anyway. So like, whoa, well, the FBI said it's Russian. Like, oh, okay. Censor everything. Contemporaneous documents from the relevant period show that social media companies recognized and received information that the Biden family influence peddling allegations were actually not Russian disinformation, because they weren't. Nonetheless, senior leadership at these companies decided to take steps to hide this true content highly relevant to the upcoming presidential election because they knew a failure to censor the story could affect how Biden and Harris would treat them when they came in, right? These people, man, if we don't censor this and they win, they're going to obliterate us once they get into power. Here's the message from Nick Clegg. It says, well, on WhatsApp over at Facebook. Well, obviously our calls on this could color the way an incoming Biden administration views us more than anything else, ... That was internal message between Facebook's then Vice President of Global Affairs, Nick Clegg, to Joel Kaplan, the Vice President of Global Public Policy, about Facebook's censorship of the Post article. So these two bros talk, well, if Biden wins, it'd be much better for us if we censored this for them. The Committee on the Judiciary and Subcommittee on Weaponization have been conducting oversight on this, and through a series of reports, we've revealed how the executive branch worked with social media companies and, quote, disinformation pseudoscientists to censor our online speech. This interim report focuses on the coordination between the FBI and big tech to suppress allegations in the 2020 election that were damaging to the Democrats. Testimony from key FBI and big tech personnel and subpoenaed non-public internal documents and communications obtained show that months before the election, the FBI provided social media companies with specific warnings. Here is what they said. What a coincidence. So weird how they just came up with this. Hey guys, it's just the FBI. Just a quick memo for you about a hack and leak operation. Looks like this. Says who? Russia. The FBI repeatedly warned big tech of potential influence operations by Russian actors targeting 2020. They called it a hack and leak operation. They warned big tech that the influence operation would take the form of a hack and leak, similar to the leak of Hillary's emails in 2016. And they don't want that to happen again because Trump won in 2016. Don't want to have a flashback of that. Late September is when it was going to happen, or October surprise, priming them for that. The FBI repeatedly warned them either as an October surprise or as soon as the first presidential debate. Now they nailed that one, didn't they? Then they said that this was going to reveal evidence about links between Biden and Ukraine called Burisma. What a weird thing. The FBI warned big tech that the Russian hack and leak operation would likely involve real or manufactured evidence concerning links between Biden and Ukraine, including the oil company Burisma. There it is, where he worked. Internal Microsoft notes state that a week before the Post story broke, the FBI tipped big tech off that this Burisma story was likely to emerge. It's just insane. The FBI is acting like a public relations firm for the Bidens, setting up the social media companies. And it worked, man. They did it. And the CIA did it from the other end too. Two of our biggest intelligence agencies totally rigging the election. It's crazy. It's sick, man. And they're still running things. So here's the threat assessment. They said, well, they sent this over. We've recently received indications from our U.S. government partners, FBI, that they believe there's a risk by Russian actors. Oh no. Likely involving real or manufactured evidence concerning links between Biden and Ukraine and the oil company Burisma. Timing is uncertain, but could be as soon as September 29th, the first debate. While this assessment is still uncertain, and by the way, remember, over at the CIA operation, where they were colluding to rig the election, Anthony Blinken was running around with Michael Morrell, ex-acting CIA director, and creating that letter. And they did it in rapid speed. They got it up and approved by the CIA before they released it. And then they gave it to Joe so he could use it at the debate. It was an operation to give him a talking point at the debate that was backed by the CIA to install Joe Biden. Message Wednesday, October 14th. Internal notes from Microsoft. October 14th, they say, uh-oh, guys, guess what? FBI tipped us all off last week that this Burisma story was likely to emerge. And today's call indicated that, now as documents produced to Congress show, the U.S. government, in particular the FBI, while in possession of the Hunter laptop, provided detailed warnings of an anticipated future Russian influence operation that mirrored the contents of the laptop. That sounds really specific. Where'd you get that from? Oh, Hunter's laptop. Wait, it's real? No, it's Russian fake info. Documents and testimony also reveal that FBI personnel who were part of the FBI task force providing these warnings, they knew the laptop was real, and they did it anyways. Armed with evidence of Biden family corruption, the FBI worked for months to ensure that once the story popped into the public, big tech would censor it. Their immediate reactions after the story went public confirm how the companies were primed. Here are internal communications that show that the company almost immediately deemed the story to be a hack leak. Oh, we're expecting this. That's it right there. On the morning of October 14th, Facebook employees exchanged candid communications about the story. So here's their Facebook group chat. Internal messages look like this. 8:37 in the morning, someone says, about what we expected in the hack leak department, it's pretty much exactly what we pre-gamed. Wow, this is weird. Their hypothetical possible leak is exactly what is now here. It looks like exactly the hack and leak scenario we'd expect, said someone else at 8:42. 9:06, someone says, can we check with the FBI Delaware if they have anything on this? The article claims the FBI has had the hard drive since December. So is it real or not? This person says, well, that's weird. It sounds like it's a hack and leak, but they said the FBI had the hard drive, so the FBI can clearly confirm, right? Someone else said, that's the exact content expected for a hack and leak. Someone else said, oh, bingo, right on schedule, trying to take out Joe. Facebook employee, someone says, this guy is not in touch with the FBI on this. I'll connect with Maryland, and this person will raise at the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force meeting today. Remember, Elvis Chan from the FBI was meeting with Facebook regularly, and the FITF, right, Foreign Influence Task Force, constantly to feed them info about people posting, misinfo about COVID and about elections and striking YouTube channels and nuking people from X and so on. Yeah, that's what was happening. They're FITF meetings. So FYI, our legal team is reaching out to the FBI on this because they've got the hard drive. Surely they would know and be honest with us, right? At 10:40, someone said, we're enqueuing the content with demotion and doing outreach to third-party fact checkers. So they're, let's go see what the Washington Post says about this, who also of course, are going to say whatever the FBI said. So no updated info from the FBI, obviously. No outreach from the Biden campaign. They don't need to comment on it because you've already been trained like dogs. Is this the October surprise everyone was waiting for? Maybe. So some people are trying to think through. Other people are just demoting it, right? What's the FBI going to do? They're just going to say rely on your training. Just they blow the whistle and they censor the story. That's it. Can you talk to your FBI counterparts to see what they say about this? They published the New York Post story. Yeah, it looks exactly like we'd expected right there. So-and-so has reached out to the FBI. Boom, they just got trained. Boom, Pavlov's dogs. Other documents suggest that key employees within the social media companies understood how their censorship would influence the election. Before the story broke, Facebook personnel understood that their response to an alleged hack and leak could sway the election. They knew it and they did it to do it. In the July 2020 internal exchange, a member of Facebook's trust and safety team said that when we get hauled up to Congress to testify on why we influenced the 2020 elections, we can say we've been meeting with the government for years to plan for it. Yeah, we know. They said nothing had changed by the time the story broke. On October 14th, the head of electoral and emerging risk for Facebook reacted by noting that it was only 482 hours to first polls close. So like the clock is ticking. So we better stop this. The FBI has defended its actions as they just call it information exchange, right? Our corrupt government knows that they're not allowed to censor us themselves, even though they do. They can do it through a third party with private sector partners. Oh no, we just told them that guy's spreading vaccine misinfo, and they just go and they just nuke that account. Oh, that's good. So the FBI didn't censor it. No, they just leveraged a third party to do it and then berated them from the White House, Rob Flaherty and others from the White House screaming at social media companies. I thought I told you to respond to me. Like little hysterical, whiny, petulant children demanding that private companies buckle and bend to the federal government. It's sick, but that's what tyrants act like. So here you can see it was continuing on. The FBI, if their intent was to truly help social media companies, they should have shared this. The allegations that were alleged in the Post story were actually based off real credible information, like the hard drive that the FBI had in their possession. The FBI failed to do that if they really wanted to stop that. Instead, they enabled a fake Russian hoax narrative to develop against a nuclear power who is innocent of this. While the FBI eventually conceded that it had no indication the allegations in the Post story were Russian at all, the Russians were innocent, only after an FBI agent mistakenly revealed to X, a Twitter at the time, that the laptop was real, the FBI still withheld the fact that it had seized the laptop months prior, just allowed people to think it was fake, knowing it was real. It's a lie by omission, and they did it to rig an election. Now, as a result, Twitter and Facebook continued to censor the most significant story of the entire election cycle, limiting the reach of the allegations, all to the benefit of Biden-Harris. And is that a campaign contribution? Twitter suppressed the Post story by removing links to it. Remember that? And they applied safety warnings. They banned the account. Although Twitter lifted the ban on the story the next day, it continued to suspend the Post's account until October 30th, right? Nuked it. For a week, Facebook manually demoted the content by 50%, substantially reducing the likelihood it would show up in the feed. During this week, over 30 million Americans cast their vote, nearly 1/5 of the final vote total, and far more than the final reported margin of 45,000 votes that determined the outcome of the election, right? It's outcome dispositive. Now, the roots of the FBI's pre-bunking scheme date back to 2016. They got obliterated because they couldn't get a handle on the social media companies. They had to stand up all this disinformation stuff in response to Trump. I mean, the guy's incredible. Trump basically invented the implementation of disinformation in America because they're so panicked of him, and his supporters really had affected the integrity of the election, they said. We have to stop people from speaking out. Free speech. Fueled by left-wing denialism, a cottage industry of pseudoscientists, they're not even close to scientists, they're partisan hacks with lanyards, think tanks, and university centers sprung up to combat the alleged rise of misinfo and disinfo, all of which is what they said was responsible for Trump's victory. Because making America great again, no way. I mean, that's not possible for America to want that. So obviously Trump lied to them in some way, shape, or form because it shattered their worldview. There's no way that Trump and a strong America can overtake our vision for a global country like Hillary Clinton's was, like America versus the world versus being a global nation or something. Trump's vision was much better, so he won. But they couldn't take it, so they had to stand up misinfo and disinfo, call him a liar, fake Russian collusion stories, and smear him for the entire first term. It was nuts. The FBI formed the Foreign Influence Task Force. They stood, oh gosh, the Russians, which wasn't even real, as we saw from the special counsel investigation from Robert Mueller, right? Foreign influence? What foreign influence? It wasn't the Russians at all. It was you guys, the FBI and the CIA. These entities worked together with social media companies and they censored speech. It was conservative speech, all in the name of stopping disinfo and, ironically, promoting democracy by censoring your ability to speak in it. The FBI's pre-bunking of the Biden family allegations in the closing weeks of 2020 was merely a continuation of its earlier efforts to stop Trump. This is the same FBI, here we go, that abused its foreign surveillance authorities to spy on Trump's campaign in 2016. This is the same FBI that fabricated evidence to support a warrantless surveillance on a Trump campaign associate. This is the same FBI where senior officials bragged about, quote, an insurance plan to stop Trump from becoming president, and they promised each other that they would stop him. So we're talking Carter Page, Lisa Page, and Peter Strzok. This is the same FBI that has purged conservative agents from its ranks and asked employees whether their colleagues are supporters of Trump, and if they are, boot them out, writing, the FBI's protestations that it is not biased against conservatives rings hollow when it actively suppressed true and explosive allegations concerning the family of the Democrat nominee in 2020. It is impossible to know what would have happened if the FBI had not pre-bunked this thing, but it's unquestionable that their actions definitely influenced the 2020 election, and it cannot happen again. So that is the executive summary from Congress. Here's some conversation. They're talking about newsworthiness. Okay, here are our options on this thing. You know, it's the president candidate's adult son. So they're saying from Joel Kaplan, here are our options. We can go with the current definition, which relates to misconduct. Says Joe Biden's a prominent person, but I assume Hunter is not. So it's misconduct, so we can ban it under that. Or adopt a broader definition, given the historical view of misconduct of a president, could simply say that we'll treat close associates and family as if they were prominent people. Blank blank is someone who posted a hacked video of a candidate engaged in intercourse. We would remove that, right? Because isn't that misconduct? Or maybe we can split the difference. Nick says, okay, look, no need to ask Cheryl now. I think she was the CEO of Facebook at the time, right? She'll probably say take it down to most of these decisions, but we do need options to guide us on what could be an intense period of whack-a-mole. My instinct would be to remove this stuff here, especially as we will no doubt come under attack for allowing the original post to be going viral as we speak. I can't believe we're allowing this to go viral. I'm comfortable trying to shield Biden Jr. from intrusion into his privacy, right? So we're going to just protect him. Confirming that we will tell the Post, no Biden contact prior to referral to the third-party fact checkers. Someone else says, yeah, that makes sense to me too, Nick. At its core, the newsworthiness test is about weighing the public interest in seeing the content against the risk of harm. Both are pretty low here. It's not really news that Hunter Biden has done drugs or engaged in other bad behavior, but the risk of harm of leaving the stuff up is minimal for the same reason. Feels like the right line is probably the one blank and blank articulated. The right line is the current test. Allow hacked materials if they relate to the misconduct of a prominent person in public life, and treat only the candidates and maybe their spouses, but not the children as prominent people, right? So they're like, how do we rig this to shut this story up? Yeah, that seems about right. How does everyone else feel? Well, if we do think that the risk of harm of leaving the stuff up is low, we might also want to consider the operational challenge of trying to stay on top of actioning tens of thousands of pieces of content. Like everybody's talking about this, so we have to like nuke all these accounts or people. Joel Kaplan says, well, I don't really buy how the adult son of a VP who is being accused of influence peddling for a foreign company is not considered a prominent person in public life. And if Fox concludes that misconduct is newsworthy, pretty consistent with the standards that have applied to adult children for presidents for decades, I don't really buy it's not newsworthy either, says Joel. That's right. Clearly it's newsworthy. Nick says, you mean tens of thousands of pieces of content re Hunter Biden or all the offspring of prominent politicians? You know, the former is a pretty atypical case right now, and I think we should be nimble in dealing with the atypical focus on him and his private life rather than solve for the operational simplicity on our part. It's like we should protect Hunter rather than having to worry about nuking all those accounts. So-and-so says, I meant content for Hunter. Someone says, slightly exaggerating, but I think I saw someone mention that there were 40,000 pieces of content on the laptop. Everyone wanted to talk about it, which is why they had to nuke it. Nick says, so where do we draw the line? I don't really understand why sex might be beyond the pale, but drug taking is fair game? Like, what's the difference? So like you guys would say, we wouldn't talk about sex, but you can talk about drugs. Someone says, I would draw the line at pictures of him engaging in personal activities that aren't related to his father, because they're images, we can bank them. And again, this is because the original images are subject to our hack policy. If he'd released the images or whoever was in the room with him released them, we wouldn't take action unless, you know, it was sexual activity that violates the policy. Nick says, that intuitively makes sense to me. You know, Hunter is a legit object of scrutiny because of his alleged business ties and how whether he roped in his father to help him, but private images of sex, drugs released without his permission seems to be another matter. Then the Daily Mail, oh, they say, hey, we're talking on Facebook now. Hey, the Twitter team just released their explanation. And someone says, in addition to the Daily Mail, the New York Post also published some of these issues, which were rough. And Jack Dorsey just tweeted this. Sorry, is this in line with the decision? I want to be sure we have alignment. What are other high-profile users? What are they posting? Are we holding all the images as well until the morning, or should we show Hunter's wiener to all of our users? If we can hold till the morning, I think we should. So much churn right now, avoiding Nathan's hot dog from infesting everybody's Facebook feed. I'll ask the teams to keep doing research overnight so we have a better sense of scale in the morning. And does Jack Dorsey's explanation alter our calculus? Like, should we just do what he does? Not for me. I thought they explained themselves well, and to be frank, that they put themselves in a more defensible position than we're in right now. Yeah, I agree that Twitter is in a much more coherent position right now, and thus easier to defend. I think either removal or labeling on newsworthiness grounds is defensible, if not equally well received. I think a demotion tied to possible falsity when none of the parties are actually suggesting that the emails are false. Who's saying they're false? No one. At least so far, will be increasingly hard to defend, this guy's realizing. The fact that the FBI apparently has the laptops may explain why no one in the Biden campaign is denying the authenticity, because it's true. This guy says, yeah, I agree with Joel. Joel says, awesome. Here's one from Super Wuster. Don't know what he says. Says, awesome. I bet he wishes he didn't light the fuse that led to our FTC case now. Joel says, I will see your Tim Wu and raise you a Josh Hawley. Remains to be seen whether he will try to do this before the election. Hawley posts something. This video is up on Twitter and Facebook. I assume we may see it submitted as an ad soon. If it hasn't already, it shows 2 emails. So then Donald Trump on Facebook posted a video. He's like, oh, we're going to see ads. Okay, so I flagged this for the IPOC to keep an eye out for ads. So Trump posted like a campaign video. They're like, oh, that's a good video. That's going to be an ad. So he's going to run that. So make sure that doesn't go live. We agree that this content in an ad should be rejected, right? Like Trump can't run that. Yeah, that would be our agreed upon policy application. So he cannot run that because there are emails. Hunter's emails are in there. Well, the team says their guidance is to enforce ad submissions reactively upon escalation. Is that your input? Where'd that guidance come from? I actually don't know where that guidance came from. So was just trying not to give contradictory instructions. Well, enforcing an ad reactively on escalation seems suboptimal because it means it runs. Like we don't want him to run it, right? So like we don't let it run and then complain and then fix it. But I didn't know where that guidance came from, so I didn't want to change it, right? So I have to follow the guidance. So that's why I said we have to do it that way. So they're telling them to do things differently. Yeah, but I want to avoid it running. Exactly. We'll ensure the team has clear guidance to proactively review and prevent. So don't allow them to run it. Might take some creative engineering or manual intervention, right? Because their policies tell them to go this way. An ad goes live. That's a problem. They investigate the ad. They remove it. This guy says, no, we can't do that. We don't even want it going live. Does anyone disagree? Blank blank suggested this was an instruction from the policy. Okay, so just want to make sure I understand, says someone else. The ads would not be rejected for misinformation because it has only been in queued for fact checking. It's in queued. It hasn't been fact checked. There has not been any fact checking rating to disqualify it, but we would reject ads based on violating our hack policy. Is that what we're going to say? Though we will say we are allowing the same content in organic because it's newsworthy. Is that what we're doing? Yeah, that's my understanding. So someone says, well, the newsworthy exception does not apply to ads then. Okay. Well, I thought this was the guidance from this afternoon's meeting. I'm afraid that I'm completely blanking on any discussion of proactive versus reactive. I only recall what we said. Is there any reason to limit enforcement to reactive? Not that I can think of. We're going to allow a proactive filter. The team is now working with engineering right now to allow a proactive filter. So they're just going to go out there, identify all the Hunter posts and just get rid of it. We're moving to proactive to the extent possible, but please speak up if you have any concerns about that. Very uncomfortable removing a rule when I don't know why it was established. They're just changing everything because they're hitting the panic button and they don't know what else to do. So it's amazing. You can see hundreds and hundreds of pages more that you can go through. Jim Jordan has a link to the full document over on his account, but they combed through it and they've got 600 pages, multiple exhibits showing us exactly what was happening here. All right. The FBI was pressuring the social media companies to nuke the story, and the social media companies obliged, and they censored America, stopped one of the most important stories of the entire cycle from being legitimized, even though it was legitimate, in order to shoo Biden into the White House, and it worked. And it's the same people who are still running things. So FBI still around, CIA is still around, our Congress is still funding them and might even build them a new stinking building. But the question is, are they going to do it again this cycle? We do believe they'll try, but our vote will be too big to rig.